Chapter 3. Man's Superior Power. We all know that underlying every sign of life and in the movement of the heavenly bodies, there is some unseen, unexplained force. The world recognizes in electricity, which now furnishes us with light and heat and turns the great wheels of machinery and carries messages from continent to continent, the highest form of mechanical power. Yet, this force is not made by machinery. Man has simply learned to control a force which exists everywhere in the air and in the earth. Man is greater and more powerful than any and all the forces he brings under his control, or he would not be able to master them and make them serve him. Man's superiority over all the forces is due to his mind. Mentalism, or thought force, as it manifests itself in the human brain, is the highest known type of power, the mysteries of which have been called nature, life, spirit, soul, and even God. This great force is the opposite of matter and does not conform to any of the laws or possess any of the attributes of matter. It cannot be contained in a given space, for it pervades all space. Its products are indestructible even after the death of the person from whose brain they were dispatched. We know that every change produced in matter is due to the influence of some force acting upon it. Also, that force always controls matter. As thought is the greatest known force, it therefore must underlie all human activity. In the human body, we find the most perfect type of force acting upon matter. It possesses all the qualities of matter in motion, with the addition of the highest form of intelligence. The life of a man is governed by three influences: personal thoughts, the thoughts of others, and circumstances. The strength of the will always determine to what extent mentalism or circumstances shall be permitted to govern the person. Mentalism is the prime motive power back of all human actions. It is not only the architect and builder, but it is also the laborer that carries the material that produces the growth and makes the necessary repairs for the body. This applies not only to our body, but to any or all on whom our mental force is concentrated. The power of mentalism over physical alignments is well illustrated by the following historical fact. At the Siege of Buda in 1625, the garrison was in the direst straits. The scurvy had become epidemic, and there seemed to be nothing left to do but surrender, and no doubt it would have done so. The prince not conceived an idea and saved the day by the use of mentalism. He sent the officers to announce to the men that he had secured an infallible cure for the dread disease and that he would personally administer the remedy to each man. He gave each man a few drops of the precious fluid and at the same time impressed upon his mind the assurance that it would cure him. The effect produced upon the mind of every man was so strong that the results was instantaneous. They were all cured, and the garrison made whole in a few days and ready to fight for victory. The medicine that achieved this marvelous result was not a drug, but the power of thought guided by a strong will, the fluid administered being nothing but pure water. This incident illustrates the power of mentalism to arouse the stagnant pool of the physical vitality and change it into a swift flowing current of healthy, vigorous life. In the domain of the mind, distance and destiny of matter are not recognized. Therefore, one portion of physical matter can as easily be influenced and controlled as another. For all men are made of the same materials and are governed by the same law. The difference in the build and physical features of every man is but a record of the influence made by his personal thoughts and by the thoughts of the people with whom he has associated. As a man thinketh, so is he. The outer man is but an expression of the inner man. That is why we are able to read character from the physical form. No man can live a pure life and think only pure and beautiful thoughts, and in so doing enjoy perfect happiness, and not show the results of those thoughts in his face and in his manner. Neither can a man who has led an impure life where his thoughts have been low material cover up these signs. Every thought and its expression calls into action certain parts of the face, and this exercise that opens that particular part. The law that governs one governs all humanity, and the force that is used to influence one is used to influence all. Every thought stimulates certain brain cells and exercises some physical tissue or muscle. This exercise must produce a minute change in the construction of the tissue. This being so, and we know that it is a fact, it is then only necessary for a man to have a sufficient number of thoughts on a new subject to produce an entire change in both his physical and mental organization. It is estimated by scientists that the cells of the brain are completely destroyed and rebuilt once every 60 days. This is the secret of the wonderful cures made by mentalism. It eliminates the disease or waste material and develops healthy tissue in its place. By thought, we not only shape and control our own physical body, but we also, in a degree, form and control the bodies of others. The mother who understands the law of mentalism can, by the correct use of her thoughts, have and keep her child beautiful, talented, and healthy. In fact, she can influence and direct them to fulfill her highest ambitions. Does not history tell us that the woman who sat for weeks watching the painter decorate the interior of a cathedral became the mother of Michelangelo, the great artist? Then did not the mother of Napoleon, before his birth, visit the battlefields, study military tactics, and review troops, and experience with her husband the life of a soldier? Every mother, and often the father, whose offspring shows special physical or mental development, whether for good or evil, can recognize the influence that was the cause of it. The numerous well-authenticated instances of this kind demonstrated exclusively that thought does form the physical and mental life of the unborn, that the same effect can be produced upon those immediately connected with us is also proven by the resemblance to one another of husband and wife after a few years of married life, where the two have lived happily together. It is noticed that even their tastes and their talents change until they think alike and enjoy the same pursuits. If it is possible to project this power beyond the limits of the brain, who can determine the limits to which it may be sent under favorable conditions? Our environments and the conditions of our lives, both physically and financially, are the results and expression of the thoughts of those around us and those near us or distant with whom we have dealings. As long as one makes no effort to change the existing conditions, just so long will he remain the servant or even the slave of others. If a man would free himself from unfavorable environments or circumstances, he must bring his own mental force to counteract the influence of the thoughts of those who are controlling and shaping his career, and then use his latent power to create the new conditions under which he desires to live. Thoughts are things. If our thoughts are good, they will, to a more or less extent, help humanity. If they are not, they will retard civilization. Few people fully realize the responsibility they assume when they think thoughts that are not beneficial to others. The person who is in possession of a strong willpower and also has a knowledge of the law and power of mentalism is under a great responsibility to his fellow men. Should he have incorrect ideas in regarding to morals, his thoughts will corrupt the lives of thousands of the weaker-willed people who are unfortunate enough to come into contact with his thought waves. Very few people think original thoughts, that is, thoughts they draw from the great source of intelligence. As a rule, they make use and think the thoughts received from the thought waves of others, and in this way simply assist some other person's thought to travel around the earth. It has been fully demonstrated that when a number of people, each possessing a strong will and a knowledge of mentalism, combine their efforts and concentrate their thoughts upon one subject, they produce results equal to any of the miracles recorded in history. The universal custom of prayer is an excellent illustration of the value of combined thought. Do not whole congregations unite in prayer for the purpose of bringing about a desired result? Has not this unity of thought in prayer often produced marvelous results? Many lives have been prolonged by these efforts. The combined thought waves sent out in prayer reached the dying man and gave him new hope and courage, stimulating his heart action and thus set the machinery of life into action again at a time when it was almost stopped for the lack of additional power. This power was not supplied by him, but by the thoughts of others. Does not the Bible say that if ye will all pray with one accord, your prayer shall be answered? If all the people would only think right, they would live right, and evil would cease to exist. The language of tone is the language of the spheres. It is the language of the universal world. It is the language of the angels. Dr. C.W. Emerson.